Heathrow having a third runway is at the heart of all of this controversy. This comes as hotel tycoon and businessman Surinder Arora has published a plan which rivals that of the airport's owners, proposing a shorter new runway which would avoid the costly need to divert to the M25 motorway. Well, we can now speak with the chair of the third Runway Coalition, Paul McGuinness. Paul, thanks for joining me. This is going to face a lot of backlash. I know there's local residents across West London who are extremely unhappy with this, but the reality is also that we have not been able to build airports in this country due to so much red tape and nonsense. I guess the counter-argument to people such as yourself that may not want the third runway is this: we need to build more, we need to grow our economy, and how do we do that if no one wants this in their backyard?
Well, I think you made two very good points. And first, in your introduction, saying that this, of course, is Britain's biggest airport. But it's not quite right to say that we haven't been able to build other airports. You may be aware that in the regions we have some quite large airports, which actually not only are doing very well, but they also have quite a bit of spare capacity. And also remember that Gatwick, Stansted, Luton, London City have all just been effectively given go-aheads to expand, which will add 60 million passenger journeys per year, which is more than either of the Heathrow schemes intends to deliver. So capacity is being delivered in terms of growth. The particular problem, though, again, as you've identified in your introduction, is that this has been discussed for decades and proved to be a mission impossible for decades. And there's a reason why it is a mission impossible. And it all really comes down to the fact that Heathrow Airport, the biggest airport in the UK, as you say, is hemmed in by suburbia and lies at the heart of the country's most densely populated residential region. The schemes, including the Aurora one, which you have been speaking about today, they both entail increasing the size of Heathrow's current estate by an area which is larger than Birmingham International Airport in order to fly as many extra planes as Gatwick. And to all intents and purposes, to use your description earlier, it actually equates to the building of Britain's second biggest airport right next to the current operation. And that is why it has always been so difficult. And do remember that statistically, already Heathrow is the world's most disruptive airport. Its noise footprint, the number of people adversely impacted by each plane that flies, is 13 times that of Schiphol in Amsterdam, which is currently reducing its number of flights in order to reduce noise pollution. And the same reason, comes down to this absurd expense of both of these proposals. Each will still have to divert 5 rivers, reroute A roads, the A4, the A3044. The Aurora one may not be tunnelling under the M25, but it moves in the other direction, and the village of Sipson will be eradicated from the map. Many houses and villages will be destroyed.
Yes.
Up to 15,000 people need to be rehoused, and that's before any new infrastructure is even laid.
Well, Paul, so what is the solution here then? Because we obviously need to grow our economy, and having another runway, we're falling behind, as you said, Schiphol Airport. We're losing out to the Dutch. Heathrow was meant to be the world's, or at least Europe's biggest airport. We're losing that title. Boris Johnson had an idea of building one in the Thames estuary. Do we need to have a little bit more innovation and do things like that?
Well, quite possibly at some point we are going to realise that building airports close to dense population centres is not very sensible. That is not happening anywhere else in the world. If anything, actually, those airports are reducing in the size, as I've just said about Schiphol. We do have other airports in the UK which are doing very well. One of the real problems about this, as the Transport Select Committee has identified, is if Heathrow were to be expanded, many international direct flights from regional airports would actually transfer down to Heathrow.
Yeah.
Heathrow would become more of a monopoly. Now that,
Yes,
of course, will undermine regional airports and also regional economic opportunity. And one of the great snags, and probably the reason why Heathrow's come around again, is of this almost unreformable treasury model of growth where everything has to be London-centric, and every big capital investment goes in to the already comparatively overheated southeast rather than into the regions which really need it.
I absolutely concur with you there, Paul. Paul McGuinness, chairman of No Third Runway Coalition there. Thank you for coming on to talk to me about that developing story.